Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today, at the incredibly early hour of 4 o'clock in the morning, a DevBlog was released, containing a whole hell of a lot of changes to many a ship in-game. A lot of these changes are buffs, some of them are quite big, some of them are quite minor. Good amount of these changes are also nerfs. Again, some of them are quite big, some of them are quite minor. But we got a lot to get through in this devblog, and there's a very good chance the ship that you enjoy playing has been affected by these changes. I know more than a few of my favorite ships have been adjusted, shall we say, in this devblog. So let's go ahead and get on into it. The link to this devblog is in the description down below. If you wish to read along as I read aloud, you can find the devblog down there. If there are any graphics or images that need to be put up on screen, that will be done so as well as we go through this. So if you find yourself enjoying this video, make sure you drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all that jazz. Now let's go ahead and get on into it. So the devblog is titled Balance Changes Public Test 14.0. That is certainly a title for it. We're applying balance changes to a large number of ships based on an analysis of both their combat statistics and player feedback. So let's go ahead and get going with this very long list. So the first ship they mentioned is the Oh man, I practiced saying this right before I hit record, and of course I forget how to say it once it comes down to it. So the Novorossiysk, this is the Tier 6 Premium Soviet battleship. This is the Julius Caesar up-tiered to Tier 6. That's what happened to the ship after the war. It was transferred to the Soviet Navy, then mysteriously blew up. So she is getting a buff to her Sigma. Her Sigma is being increased from 1.4 to 1.5. Now you might think, well, that's pretty small. Actually not, especially considering it's a battleship. Those minor Sigma buffs to battleships help out a whole hell of a lot when it comes to the dispersion, because Sigma is the value that determines how close to your point of aim the shells are going to fly. The higher the value, the higher chance you have that happening. And given that the Novorossiysk has the Julius Caesar's guns, that's pretty significant there. So next ship up is the Renown, the Tier 6 Techline British battlecruiser. So her reload time is being decreased from 23.5 to 22 seconds. The ballistics of the guns are also being improved. They will now become flatter. So the shells, instead of arcing through the air high like they do now, they should be a little bit flatter. How much so? They don't say. The stock range is being increased from 15.8 to 16.3 kilometers, and then the upgradable range is being increased from 17.4 to 17.9 kilometers, and then she's getting a big buff to her rotation time. Her 180 time is being decreased from 45 to 30 seconds base. That is some quick turrets there. That is quite the upgrade. The Renown, I always found the Renown to be a little lackluster. It's just, I don't know, it just never really felt comfortable, right? This set of changes here should do a lot to make the ship not only comfortable, but make her main battery guns more consistent and, well, comfortable too with the increased range, and especially with that rotation time upgrade, given that this is a battle cruiser. The ship is quite maneuverable, and it's kind of frustrating when you're waiting, what seems like an eternity for your turrets to catch up with the movements of your ship. So excellent changes there for the Renown. Alright, the Coronel Bolonese. This is the Tier 7 Techline Pan-American cruiser. Her AP shell damage is being buffed from 3,000 to 3,200 maximum damage. And the combat instructions have also been buffed. So instead of getting a 75% buff to the preparation time of your consumables, it is now an 80% buff. So a slight damage buff for the Coronel here, and a nice buff to her combat instructions. Alright, the Luca Tarigo, which is the Tier 7 Techline Italian destroyer, she is getting a tweak to her engine boost. So her engine boost, the runtime now is being increased from 25 to 40 seconds, and the reload time is being decreased from 160 to 120 seconds. So they have given it, I don't think it, so There's two types of engine boost. You have the traditional engine boost, which typically lasts for, a minute or two. And then you have the emergency engine power, which is a engine boost that gives you a bit more of a boost, but it's active for a shorter time. So now you're getting a bit of a longer engine boost here with that still that improved boost to your speed, and it reloads faster. So it's going to give you more opportunities to pull off those funny maneuvers that you can pull off with the Italian destroyers. They're not quite YOLO Emilio, but they can cover quite a bit of distance with that engine boost going in their smokescreen, so you can do some pretty funny things there. So the Tarigo, it was already a pretty comfortable ship. From about tier 7 down, the Italian destroyers are very nice. So this is just going to make them, make the Tarigo at least, that much nicer. So rejoice, Italian destroyer enjoyers. Alright, the Undine and the Sturdy, those are the tier 8 British submarines. Their secondary shell ballistics are becoming flatter as well. So I guess the secondary guns weren't doing that much work on these two subs, so alright. Belfast 43 getting a buff out of friggin' nowhere years after this thing came out. The Belfast 43, when she came out, was a bit of a letdown. Because, of course, many were expecting her to live up to the Belfast, the Tier 7 premium British light cruiser, but it didn't, because that ship's incredibly overpowered. But she's getting quite a few buffs here. So her main battery guns, they're getting a buff to their reload time. It's going from 10 seconds to 8.5 seconds now. The fire chance on her HE shells has been increased from 9 to 11%. The turret traverse is being decreased from 25.7 to 22.5 seconds. And she's getting an additional charge of her radar from 2 to 3. Those are some massive buffs to the Belfast 43. Like I said, ship wasn't that big of a hit. Many were expecting it to be the Belfast. It was not, but this is a lot nicer than what we have right now. So I'm probably going to take that ship out if these changes make it to the live server. Alright, the Dmitry Polzarsky, the Tier 8 Premium Soviet Cruiser. Her AP shell damage is being increased from 3,000 to 3,300. So another light alpha damage buff to the Polzarsky, again, like what we saw with the Pan American Light Cruiser. Alright, the Vittorio Cuniberti, the Tier 8 Tech-Align Italian Destroyer. Exact same changes as the Tarigo. Her emergency engine power is getting a buff to its runtime from 25 to 40 seconds, and a buff to its reload time from 160 to 120. So I'm guessing they're going by tier, not by nation. Interesting setup here, Wargaming. Alright, the Split, the Tier 8 Pan-European Destroyer. Her main battery guns are getting a buff to their reload, down to 3.4 seconds from 3.6 seconds, and a buff to her torpedo tube reload time, down to 60 seconds from 68 seconds. So, some smaller, but definitely welcome buffs there to the Split. This next change really caught my eye when I saw it. The Champagne, the Tier 8 Premium French battleship. This is the French Tier 8 Slava. So it's the French battleship with 6 16-inch guns with, it's got the same gimmick as the Slava. Further away you are from the target, better the accuracy, and the guns have those crazy ballistics, which make them very comfortable and very hard-hitting at range. They're giving her a reload booster. Okay, Wargaming. Okay, you get 3 charges of it. It's active for 15 seconds, and it has a 1-minute reload time, and you get a 50% buff to the reload time of the Champagne. Now they note here that while the Champagne performs well in terms of damage, her impact on the battle is somewhat low. Therefore, we're adding main battery reload booster to help her impact battles at important moments. So that's gonna be interesting. Okay. Alright, next up, the Marco Polo, the Tier 9 Premium Italian Battleship. This is the 16-inch Italian battleship with SAP. They're finally giving her a buff to her reload time. So her main battery reload is dropping down from 36 seconds to 34.5 seconds. So a 1.5 buff to her guns, which is desperately needed in my humble opinion. I mean, the thing just takes forever to reload. It's still not that accurate. I mean, it's better now than it was when it launched, but it definitely needed some more love because of how inaccurate the guns still are. I mean, especially now that we have the Tier 10, the Loria with the 18-inch sap guns that are pretty accurate. I think we can give the Marco Polo a little bit more of a break here, and that is certainly something that they seem to be doing. All right, the Donskoy, the Tier 9 Soviet light cruiser. Her surveillance radar is being buffed to run for 30 seconds, up from 25 seconds, so a 5-second buff to her radar time. All right. The Hizen, the Tier 9 premium Japanese battleship. She, too, is getting a buff. Her reload time is being decreased from 38 to 34 seconds. A whole 4-second buff to the Hizen's reload time. That is insane. She has 12 16-inch guns. So that's, yeah, that is definitely not insignificant there. So, all right, we got a lot of ships to check out after these buffs go live. The Dalian, the Son of Small Lints, the Tier 9 Pan-Asian light cruiser. So her range is being increased from 13.5 to 14.1 kilometers, and her reload time is being buffed from 4.9 to 4.5 seconds. So, yeah, she is Son of Smolensk, but she's nowhere near as crazy as the Smolensk. So, thankfully, that's the case. So, yeah, interesting change there. The Tulsa, the Tier 9 Premium American Cruiser. This is the Steel Cruiser. Her dispersion is being improved and now corresponds with the standard destroyer shell dispersion pattern. So the Tulsa is, as far as the guns are concerned, it's a Des Moines with 1 gun missing per turret. So, yeah, destroyer 203mm guns now. That's going to be scary. Yeah, that's certainly spooky in my opinion. I may actually have to get that thing now. I mean, it's a still ship, so I got a few I'm trying to get right now, but we'll get around to picking her up. All right, the Adriatico. Similar changes that we've seen in the other Italian destroyers, except that the action time is being increased from 25 to 60 seconds, and the reload time still the same, 160 to 120. The Adriatico, I think she needs more of like a reload buff, which she did get a little while ago, and probably another range buff as well. Then she'll be more like on par with Tier 9 destroyers, and I'm assuming they're doing similar things to the Regalo, to the Regalo as well. But yeah, they need more of like reload buffs and range buffs than just smoke buffs, in my opinion. All right, the Castonis, the Tier 9 Pan-European destroyer. The main battery reload time is being reduced from 3.8 to 3.3 seconds. The torpedo launchers are being reduced in reload time from 68 to 60 seconds. Again, very similar to what we saw with the split. The Tsurugi, my beloved Tsurugi, main battery guns reload time reduced from 25 to 24 seconds. HE shell ballistic parameters changed. This will result in flight trajectory becoming flatter, identical to that of her AP shells. All right. The turning radius has also been shrunk from 970 to 890 seconds, and she's getting another charge of Repair Party, up from 3 to 4. Tsurugi, I like Tsurugi as is already, so this is going to make her that much better, so I am definitely on board for that. Another reason to take her out now. And probably one of the most surprising buffs on this list. The Republic is being buffed from 2 to 2.1 when it comes to the Sigma. That is something. Republic, I don't think she really needed that, but I'm not going to argue against it because I like my Republic. If they want to give it 2.1 Sigma, by all means, Wargaming, give it 2.1 Sigma. That's going to be a fun update. All right, the Jinan, she's getting an HP buff from 30,700 to 32,500, and her HE shells are also being buffed. Her maximum damage is increasing from 1,800 to 1,900, and the fire chance is increasing from 9 to 11%. Quite toasty there. Oh, and the torpedoes are being buffed as well, from 17,900 to 18,800 maximum damage. The Regalo, same buffs as the Adriatico. Alright, and Zao. Zao is getting a few buffs as well. This is applying to the Zao and the Zao color. They note that the Zhao has received buffs over time, and while Zhao is performing well according to their numbers, but players, volunteers, and community contributors keep asking for her to be improved. So they are now giving the Zhao the post-launch turning abilities that the Japanese light cruisers get. So now you won't have to show your entire broadside to the enemy team in order to dump your torpedoes into the water. And they're increasing her turn angles, because why not? So for the turning angles, for the turrets, the turn angles. The first turret's being widened by 8 degrees per side, second turret by 1 degrees per side, third turret 4 degrees per side, and the fourth turret 9 degrees per side. Dang. And for her torpedo angles, now with the turning mechanic, the forward firing angles for all torpedo tubes are going to be increased by 10 degrees, while the rear firing angles for all tubes are going to be increased by 45 degrees. That's some nice angles now. So, yeah, okay. So the Yumahari, the Adatara, and the Bungo, their HE shells, the ballistics are being changed, and they're basically going to be the same as the AP shells on those ships. So after that, we have some super ships. They're getting some changes to their combat instructions. And, well, the Clausewitz and the Hanover, they are getting some very interesting changes indeed. So let's go through these. The Satsuma, combat instruction parameters changed, removed current progress conditions, added new progress conditions. You have to hit an enemy ship with a main battery shell. You get an 8% fill every shell hit you get. I believe beforehand you just had to hit near the ship in order for the instructions to fill up. So this feels a little bit more balanced, because the Satsuma's combat instructions is basically Deadeye on demand. You get an improved dispersion, and that was super easy to activate beforehand, so that makes sense. Alright, the Yushikov, her new progress conditions is that you have to hit an enemy ship with a main battery shell for a 6% fill to your bar, and once you receive 2,000 potential damage, you get 0.1% of a fill to your bar. Yushikov, super Kremlin, not going to have any problem really tanking that much or hitting ships that much with her guns. Alright, the Hanover. So now the Hanover, if you hit an enemy ship with a main battery shell, that it is a 10% fill to your bar. And then when you hit a secondary shell on the ship, you get a 1.5% fill to your bar. So that makes a lot more sense there, with the secondaries filling up the combat instructions that boost the secondaries performance. Makes total sense in my mind. The Clausewitz, her hydro range is being increased from 6 to 7 kilometers. So destroyers, beware, along with submarines. Although granted, Clausewitz really shouldn't be that close to anything unless it's like super late game, so there is that. Same with the Jacksonville, 6 to 7 kilometers, because the Jacksonville wasn't powerful enough. Oh, but, yeah, never mind. Oh, no, I am so sorry, I misread that. The Hanover is getting a 7-kilometer hydro as well. That's cool. Okay, so the Hanover and the Clausewitz are getting a 7-kilometer hydro, not the Jacksonville. The Jacksonville's actually getting a nerf. Her main battery guns are being nerfed from 18.2 to 17.2 kilometers for their range. So that was very much needed in my humble opinion. Jacksonville is insane with some of the things that I've been seeing pop up about her. Alright, now some much needed ASW changes. So they say here, we're updating ASW parameters for several ships, matching them better with standard value for ships. We want to highlight here a change very frequently requested by our community for Battleships Massachusetts and Musashi. Based on your feedback, we're increasing the range of their depth charge airstrike. This will allow players to be more effective and defend better against submarines. As a trade-off for this improvement, we're reducing the damage per bomb to keep the ship at a similar balanced level, while significantly improving the usefulness of this armament. Thank God. Alright, so the Montcalm, the Tier 6 French cruiser, she's getting a buff to her reload time by 10 seconds. So it used to be 30, now it's 20 seconds for ASW charge to come off of cooldown, or get reloaded, actually. The Canaries, the Tier 6 Premium Spanish cruiser, The number of the bombs dropped in the strike has been increased from 3 to 1, but the bomb damage has been increased from 1600 to 2900, and the splash damage range of the bomb has also been increased. The FR-25, the Tier 6 Premium Italian Destroyer, her depth charge damage is being increased from 2400 to 3200 damage. And the Massachusetts and the Musashi, the depth charge airstrike range is being increased from 5 to 10 kilometers, but the bomb damage is being reduced from 4,200 to 2,500. So, I mean, that is a pretty heavy reduction, the damage that the bomb does, but like, my god, a 5-kilometer ASW is completely useless. Like, even at Tier 6, that's no range whatsoever. And most submarines are not going to get that close to you anymore because of the 3-kilometer arming range for their torpedoes. So, it was literally useless. And if you were in a Musashi, you came up against a submarine, you literally could not do anything. Because Tier 10 subs, they are far, far away from you. You know, far away from 5 kilometers, right? Same with the Massachusetts with the submarines she had to run into. So that is a great change. Glad Wargaming's doing it. Took them long enough, though, but I'm glad it is done indeed. Alright, so the Orange, the Tier 9 French Destroyer. The number of depth charges she dropped has been increased from 8 to 10. The Z-42, the Tier 10 Special Premium German Destroyer. Her depth charge damage has been increased from 2,200 to 2,400, and she now drops 12 depth charges instead of 8. The Aegir, the Azurlane Aegir, the Siegfried, and the Menchong. The number of depth charges airstrikes bomb delivered has been decreased from 3 to 2. The damage for the bombs has been increased from 1,600 to 4,200, and the splash damage has been increased as well. That's a pretty fair trade-off for losing one depth charge, in my opinion. So there you have it, fellas. A absolutely massive 21-minute long list of buffs and nerfs coming to ships. Most of them were buffs, and most of them were pretty significant buffs all in all. Some are very big. So I'm surprised by this. I'm glad Wargaming is... I mean, a lot of these changes we have been asking for some time. The ZAL changes, the changes to the depth charges. I'm glad Wargaming is getting around to addressing those. And it's looking pretty hopeful for a lot of these ships that were considered to be just bad, like the Belfast 43. Those are some huge buffs there. And the Tsurugi, I know, like, I'm in, like, the Tsurugi, lovers camp, while most are in the haters camp, but I really liked it. But again, those are some really nice changes coming to the Tsurugi, so that's cool. I really liked a lot of these changes. So here's hoping these changes make it through into the final version, I should say the release version of the update. So we'll keep our eye on these changes with great interest. Let me know what you guys think about them in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, wonderful rest of your week and weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.